Howdy haunts, this is the disembodied voice of one Revelator Rosz coming to you from the future to quickly let you know about We the Hallowed, our art collective's new somatic magic initiative. It's a micropress initiative, and it's starting within the patreon.com/PRAGMAGICK, well, Patreon. For certain subscribers, you can receive handmade and handcrafted ritual cassette tape talismans, as well as zines and a seasonal newsletter full of original art and writing. All printed, all dispatched from the dimming room, from our fiddly digits to your messy fingers. So please join patreon.com/PRAGMAGICK for free. Look around. Be notified for any of my wide berth updates, and stay tuned for a Somatic Magic documentary on this very channel. But don't worry, you don't have to be a subscriber to purchase a hex cassette, as I just released my shelved Revelator Rosz debut Ra's al Ghul on talismanic tape form only via wethehallowed.bandcamp.com. You can purchase yours, I'll ship it to you myself, and make it myself. I'm sorry for being mum in this current. I hope you enjoy Frater Perseus and Jilly Beans and me wax weird about the Astro Cosmick dust-up that is ahead of us this summer of 2025. You'll be hearing a lot from me soon. With that, haunt on.
My guests, Jilly and Frater Perseus, for joining me and helping kind of dispel a little bit of these cosmic transits that are, I don't know, if anyone's interested in any kind of Venn diagram of astrology or any overlapping kind of coexistence with it, like everybody's been talking about May onward in 2025, and there's like just a lot of transits that are happening in the first time in recorded history. There's some that haven't happened in hundreds of years. There's I know for me personally, and according to my Western chart, there's really benevolent ones and relieving ones that are happening. And as somebody that gets tired of trying to source voices and piecemeal through the bric-a-brac of all the voices out there in different modes and ideas, I thought I'd, go straight to my friends who I trust, and that is Miss Jilly Beans and Frater Perseus. So thank you for being here.
Of course.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
And if anyone's in the chat, I'm going to check my phone to look at comments. I'm doing this multi-window thing. Don't think I'm being distracted or not paying attention to the conversation. That's just me making sure that the algorithms aren't continuing to fuck with me as they had since the Uranus conjunction. That's a little inside joke for you astro nerds. All right.
Nice.
But yeah, as you can see already, it's about kind of breaching this. We stand a lot on ceremony, especially in forms of media and way we present ourselves to the world, or conduits to the other. And I think in the past few months, there's been a lot of kind of collective realization that we're putting far too much focus in how things are packaged and not what we're actually getting from them. And, I think YouTube and I think live streaming and I think all of that is a good kind of cosmic indicator of these transits, if you were to think of them, in those archetypal sense, where, whether it's like dramas or like, these synchronicities of recommended videos of like, holy shit, how did it know I was thinking about that? I feel like a lot of those are kind of in a digital way transfixed within, the transits themselves. I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts about it.
I just the only thoughts I have is that there's a lot of like shakeups, let's just say, that's going to be coming through. And where do people consume news, content, media? It's like YouTube, it's
Yeah.
online. And I think there's going to be a lot of less traditional reporting out of stuff, and you're going to see more of this. And let's face it, I hate to say it, but AI is coming.
Mhm.
It's coming in
Oh,
a
it's
big
here.
way, like everywhere.
Yeah.
Kind of scary, to be honest. To be quite honest,
That will be fine.
until
We'll
it
be fine.
decides that it wants to, rule the world, and it's Terminator.
It already has in this retrocausal way. It's
Yeah.
it built the simulation. I don't want to get into all that, but yeah, what do you think, Mr. Perseus?
What was the question again? I'm sorry, I missed your prompt.
I think piggybacking off of Jill, because it's a lot of what I was meaning was the modes of which we are communicating, especially through, general media and whatever, seems to really like mirror the kind of transits that
Okay.
have been occurring. I've noticed, especially in how I react to, how I'm imbibing media, how me as an artist or something, or somebody that is like a conduit, pushing stuff out, like how much or how little I care about certain aspects and certain revolutions of things, how much I
Okay.
want more. The past few months, I think up until this Neptunian transit, really, which we should break down and talk about, but I was very inward. I was resolute to just toil away in my, Neptunian dream in the dimming room here, and, keep working on stuff. And that was the transit. For those that don't know, Neptune just transited out of Pisces into Aries, and that's what, every 30 years or so? It does that?
Neptune? No, that's like 14.
14. I'm mixing them up. But yeah, so the last 14 years, if anyone can marker that, I know I surely can. That's largely the genesis of everything that I am now. There's a marked difference between 14 years ago and 14 years now. So
Yeah.
definitely
Indeed.
felt that.
Yeah, it's I haven't noticed. I don't know. I don't have my finger on the pulse of how the transits are manifesting in media or how we consume media. I've always kind of done the same thing. So in terms of that, I'm not noticing much. But I mean, obviously, the Pluto in Aquarius is changing the world stage for technology, and I think that the biggest one that's going to come in, that's going to trine that. So the best supportive aspect is going to be when Uranus enters Gemini in July. I think that's going to be the breakthroughs in technology and communication for sure. So, I mean, that's something we can discuss. I think that's going to be felt probably immediately, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Plutonian shift seems it's a big one on my list. But how should we do this?
I gotta say,
sequential?
I love Pluto. Pluto doesn't get enough love. If you
Amen.
ask me. I was thinking about this earlier, like, what was I thinking of? And Pluto always comes to mind because when I think of Pluto, it's like the Tower card. And it's like, Pluto, you're a planet, you're not a planet, you're gonna be a star, but now, we're gonna upgrade you again. Like, Pluto gets a lot of shit and not enough credit, but it really, when Pluto moves, it's very like it disturbs everything. But I feel like if you embrace it, Pluto's actually your friend.
I agree.
Can be.
My take. I just got empathy. I feel like
I don't know. I just rocked my first house for 16 years, so I don't know. I have a little less empathy for Pluto, but I'm a Plutonic. Pluto's on my almost exactly on my midheaven. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Pluto's almost exactly on my midheaven. So, I feel it differently, and I have my own different things. But it moving definitely felt different, and I feel like, this year is the year of all these outer planet transits. So that's really the big thing this is going to be a turning point year for sure on many levels. And people are going to be feeling things, and you're going to see people who don't understand anything about astrology and don't even maybe give it any credence or credit. And then they're going to be like, yeah, all this stuff is changing in my life. And you're kind of be behind the scenes like, yeah, me too. You know?
Yeah.
So
That's what I think. That's largely what I meant in the preamble, was that I could see, I think the Neptunian shift showed me, it got me out of myself, and I started to notice a kind of like the collective tethers of the transits. It's usually very like it's a private, not a private, it is naturally a private thing, but it's always been more of an internal, and hard for me to like piecemeal what that looks like, you know,
sure.
to society at large. But something about that Neptunian shift just kind of both shocked me awake and kept me asleep, you know.
It makes you very inward.
Mm-hmm.
Like Neptune, like, you know, you get very internal and, you know, very, it makes total sense knowing you and what Neptune does. That makes like absolute sense how that would affect you.
Yeah. But how should we proceed? What do you two astro mages and cosmic witnesses think? Should we go sequentially, back a little bit? What's a good launching off point to kind of discuss upcoming and current transits?
I would say let's start with the Neptune one, because that already happened and is kind of ongoing and is still fresh though.
Okay.
So we could take it from there, and then my idea was kind of go through these outer planet changes, because those are going to be the ones that are going to be felt most powerfully, I would say, especially by the majority of people. So that kind of will make it applicable to more people.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, why don't you kind of describe what you felt, Keats, when Neptune moved into Aries?
Yeah, I've talked about it a bit, I think mainly on Patreon and whatnot. And for the life of me, off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact date, but that doesn't really matter, because there's, you know, kind of leading up and runoff kind of transition.
It was like
What's that?
April 30th. It was April 30th.
Oh, so it was a lot of preamble then. So it was
I'm sorry, not April 30th. That just happened 2 days.
March
April 20th. No. Was it March 30th? Hold on a second. I should know this because it was huge. It's been like a month. Yeah, I think it was March.
Yeah, Neptunian transit.
I got it right here. Let's see.
I know. I was gonna say I know I had it somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was March 30th.
It was March 30th. Yeah,
you were right.
So I just remember it's the way I've described it is not only have like, I've always been a deep dreamer, and Neptune, you know, Neptune is a major ruler for me, and a kind of big source of planetary archetypal nature for me. So to have it, I think I just never realized that to have it like kind of, you know, cubed in Pisces for 14 years, and especially after, you know, having this huge transformative time in 2011, and, you know, branching off into this direction through being kind of out and proud about metaphysical leanings, and you know, booning all these artistic projects and trajectories and things. Like, there was a marked difference about one morning. It was right around March 30th, because I felt a relief. There's no other way to describe it, but things weren't as didn't feel as heavy, or like as compounded by introspection. I felt like an assurity, like a confidence in a way, but more of like I don't know how to put it, like a psychical or a spiritual confidence, and that like it felt like an internal I don't know, an internal jury like went out to lunch, and I could kind of just trust myself for the day and not be as you know, self judgmental, or and especially in my case as analytical, as self analytical, and as like multiplied by the nth degree analytical as I am usually and have always been. I felt like some of those voices kind of diminished, and I remember messaging you, Leo, and talking about it, because it was like there wasn't anything physically, there wasn't a huge routine change. I was like, it has to be something that, astro weather or something. It's got to be another mover or like a resonance that is shifted. And it was like right when Neptunian energy kind of moved. So that kind of set me on this kind of re-entry into kind of looking into 2025 transits. Obviously, since knowing both of you, I've always been a foot in, foot out, kind of using astrology as my own kind of like arithmetic or language to help define parts of myself in the outer and inner, and like ways to kind of map and choreograph rituals. So I've always been a dabbler, right? But it wasn't until I think that shift where I actually felt a somatic difference enough for me to be like, oh shit, what's going on? So that's
that makes a lot of sense too. And I'm looking at one of my charts here. It's just an alignment chart, and it shows, dude. I can't believe I forgot about this. The day before, on the 29th of March, was the final eclipse in Aries.
Lots of fire.
Yeah.
Lots of fire signs.
Yeah. So kind of heralding the big change that was about to happen the next day.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So I bet you were feeling that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the year preceding that was like probably my most astrologically minded year, because the eclipse season, the Great American Eclipse Saga, was the nodes of how and when I performed the Hontomancy rituals, of which I'm now like really deep into defining and creating and world building, in book form, and working on this zine. Like my mind has been nothing but like, holy shit, everything is tethering together in this like anarchic system that really elucidated, I think, around that shift as well. And of course, it was another eclipse that was a harbinger of that too.
Makes sense. What about you, Jilly?
So for me, I can say I have definitely been very introspective. I have had a lot of personal drama, which we don't need to go into here, but I've had a lot in my life where I had big decisions, big revelations, and I feel like I was so like in my own head, couldn't get out of my own head. And so Neptune in my chart, in my birth chart, is in Sagittarius. I have like so many planets in Sagittarius. I am nothing but fire, and then water. Like balance is like the story of my life. Neptune's actually in my 4th house right now, which is totally on par, because it's all about the house, your home, and a lot of stuff around my home has come up with, due to financial things, almost having to almost be in foreclosure, which is scary and not fun. But like, I have felt a shift within me. I wouldn't say I'm getting clarity finally. I feel like all the transits that have been happening they have made me go really deep inside of myself, to the dark places that nobody really wants to go to, and really look at situations for what they are and not what someone's telling me it is. And like going with my gut and my intuition, I know when someone's lying to me, like, and just kind of remembering who I was, because that person got lost. So for me, I think a lot of that has happened. And I've felt a shift since April of my reactions to people. in my life where I'm like the forever people pleaser, keeping the peace, and finally being like, you know what? Maybe I don't need to keep the peace and always like be afraid, like, or feel bad because someone feels shitty because they just did something shitty to me. Now they feel bad. Now I feel bad. Like I'm kind of over that.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of trying to put up some more boundaries. I guess that I would say that's it. And and having to go to Pisces too, like that is such like, that's like the dreamy, happy land. So I'd like to be in the dreamy, happy land. I've been living in a very chaotic land.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting. Are you a Capricorn rising, or how do you look at your chart? Do you use Placidus or do you use whole sign?
Yeah. I am a Capricorn rising, Sagittarius, and my moon is in Scorpio.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I'm a Capricorn rising too, so it's in my 4th house as well.
Great. That was good.
You got a problem with Capricorns there,
Got two
Keatsy?
caps.
That's
This
right.
is Cap, fam.
That's what's up. Yeah, my immediate notice, the thing I noticed immediately rather was my dreams changed the night of the 29th into the 30th. So I felt that overnight shift. My dreams became, and I think we talked about this too before, Keats, how they went from being, and I've noticed another change since we talked, so I'll talk about that too, but my dreams went from being very like archetypal and mythologically themed to where there was no traceable storyline. There was only feelings and objects and situations, to where now there are characters that are from my actual life, and there's actually like a through line and a story in my dreams, which is, like I remember having dreams like that, but it probably was like 14 years ago. So it's like that.
I told you about that around the same time was the first time in years where I went back to the same dream 5 times in a night.
Yeah, I did that for the first time in years, only one time, like a week ago, dude. So like it's crazy. We're both having this weird dream sequence shift, but I've also noticed that my mind is clearer. The only way I can say is like this constant fog of, it's almost like my vision is clearer too. And I don't mean just because I'm wearing glasses. I mean like in my mind, like actually, like I feel like I can see things, and I'm no longer, when you describe that like anxious analytical overdrive, like I definitely had that too. And I feel like you and I have many parallels for some reason in this transit. But for me, it's like everything got clearer. The brightness almost got turned up on everything. And this fog that was permeating all the in-between spaces of thoughts and or just concepts in my mind has gotten removed. There's a clarity, and man, I'm grateful for that, because damn, dude, like I thought, like I'm starting to think that maybe what I was attributing to Pluto and some of those nihilistic leanings and all some of that stuff was actually fucking Neptune, is what I'm realizing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have I feel like their energies are very similar. Just one's a bit more like absolutist, and the other one's a bit more opportunistic. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think Pluto means well.
I mean, I don't know if any of them could be considered, I mean, like there's, light and dark with every one of them. I know I feel like the end of that Neptunian shift, like I was very much feeling like the maximalist kind of messy energies of Neptune, where it was like a lot of double speak, where I couldn't see through my own kind of illusions and dreamscapes, and things were just kind of messy. I didn't feel connected. It was like very visionary, but very like hermit like, and I felt like that was compounded pretty hard, and then it just went
pretty amazing how it happened overnight too. Like I felt transits when they've happened before. That was probably the only one I've noticed instantaneously, like maybe Saturn into Pisces, because Saturn into in Aquarius was so heavy because it was my Saturn return and Saturn in domicile. So I'm sure you might feel that too, because you had it in your second house as well, Jilly.
No, actually, Saturn is in my 7th house. I'm a lot older than you. Oh no, sorry, I'm looking at my birth chart. Sorry, Saturn's in my. That's where it is in my birth chart. But you're right.
It was transiting your second. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's hard too. Having a Saturn opposition to your first house, that's difficult.
Yeah.
But it was in Cancer, right? So I mean, it's in its detriment there, so it's not as powerful, which is good. But anyway, oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say my Saturn placement in my birth chart is a tricky one. It's all about family, and it definitely everything about it rang true in my early childhood, and even a little bit into my adulthood with like my relationship with my mom and things of those natures. I wasn't when I started to learn astrology, and that's what I learned about that. I'm like, well, that's no shocker there. Shots don't lie.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah, I mean, so in terms of the Neptunian thing, I think we're just going to see more of the ideal shift. Like we mentioned this before, but I think it's worth mentioning again is when Neptune moved into Pisces, they have a very synergistic energy. And modern astrologers tend to think of Pisces as the home sign, the domicile for Neptune, right? So what we noticed was like collectively mundane is that, there was way more interest in the occult. There was way more interest in spirituality and healing, psychotherapy modalities, all these different things. So I think that, that was what that, has shown. I mean, it happened. That's one big thing we can notice, especially in the community that we're involved with. There's a lot more witches and wizards and a lot more astrologers than there were 14 years ago, I would say. And I think I've noticed that in my life. Somebody else mentioned that to me, and I was like, yeah, that's true. And now I think we have to figure out what this first house of the, of the actual zodiac, the first sign, what this ingress is going to mean. It could mean the hero archetype. It could mean the self, being put as a forefront. It could mean a lot of those things. So what do you guys think based on that?
Well, I know that there was a huge uptick in the metaphysical world with the pandemic, 2020. Sure. And that is when everyone was a rainbow child and a light worker and, a star seed and all that shit.
Serious star seed, baby.
Now, granted, I don't need to label, like I don't need to call myself a something. I know what I am. I'm a witch at the end of the day. But that was where, because people were just stuck at home and they didn't know what else to do. So, but I feel like there was so many frauds that came out of that too. And I think now it's kind of like shaken out where those people that were jumping into it because they didn't have anything better to do, or it sounded good, or they drank the Kool-Aid and said, oh, I can make all this money by offering this whatever, and then we're going to ascend. I think a lot of that has shaken out where the true ones are coming forward now, because hate to say it, that's what we kind of need. And the planet kind of needs it because there's so many other weird, strange energies also coming around.
Sure.
It's almost like I don't want to sound corny, but it's almost like a call to duty, like a bat signal, or, people are finding their callings, I think. And there's a deep healing within spirituality. That's how I ended up here, was through grief. That's what started my journey. So there is there's a lot I feel that needs healing in the world in general, and spirituality is a great way to really heal truly, not just like surface level, but really deal with those demons that haunt you, right?
Sure.
I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, I think that's great. Keats, what are you thinking, just with your knowledge basically of Aries and this transit and how you're feeling? What do you think maybe we could see in the mundane sphere with this?
Who are you talking to?
Keats.
Oh, you. Me?
I'm not Keats.
Yeah. I was like, with my knowledge, surely he's not talking to me.
Well, some stuff, dude. Don't.
Yeah. Come on.
Well, I can say, there's a lot of talk if we just think just kind of archetypally like Aries. It's rather interesting that there's so many signs transiting into Aries, and the initiatory aspects of that, and it does feel like a kind of coming to for maybe the larger world. I know for me specifically in regards to what Jilly was saying, I think the way I put it was, I think I was giving an update about kind of, I would pepper in like, hey, this is what I'm up to. I would wide birth that like once a month, since kind of being behind the scenes a lot in the past few months. And it, I realized when I was kind of like orating, like why I'm focusing on my own like anarchic magical system, or like this like greater web of projects of conduits and tethers and things all kind of connected and spawning out from each other. In that sense, nothing's really changed, but at the same time, piggybacking off of what Jilly was just saying, it's like, yeah, that's what all of us that I think were touched or motivated to really investigate this stuff, that it wasn't blasé and it wasn't aesthetic. That's what we all should be, or like that's what it's only par for the course that we would kind of evolve into that, right? We'd get to the point where we're like, I've taken enough of the outside fodder and information and knowledge. I want to do something with it, or I feel motivated and inspired to do things with it, And I think that's like what Julie was saying with like the pandemic. There was a large influx of people, the online communities flourished. Obviously, that's not the case anymore, but I can't say that, you know, I felt I feel any different now than I did then, you know, aside from making some really good friends around that time, Jilly included.
Yes, yes.
But as far as like what my MO has been, why I was doing this, why there isn't a PRAGMAGICK episode every week on a different topic, is because the whole point was that I would imbibe in things that inspire me, and then take those things and do something with them, and actually have this like somatic and active, creation with this knowledge and stuff. And I feel like that sort of Aries energy is like, there's nothing that describes that better than like a Mars, and like just all of this shit kind of moving into an initiatory practice of like, cool, like how many times do we have to give an introductory YouTube video and a different voice before you're actually going to do something with the fucking information? You know what I mean? So that's what it feels like to me. I don't know, I could be wrong, but that's kind of like parallel to what I'm kind of generally feeling, as far as like an evolution of maybe like the seeker quote unquote mentality since 2020. And it's one of those like, buy the ticket, take the ride, and the herd will thin, c'est la vie.
Can I make an observation just about after what now that you've like kind of said, expressed how it felt? Me being an outsider looking into your life, like knowing you since 2020, I have seen such a shift where you have put out more fantastic things, like with the cassette tapes and the grimoire and everything you're releasing. I don't think when I first met you, I don't remember you were writing more forwards for people than doing your own stuff. And now I really can see that shift, even though you might have pulled back from like weekly podcasts and all that stuff, but your energy got directed where it needed to be. That's just my like my thoughts of an outsider looking in your life.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that was a large part of that system to me, though, was a very like communal aspect, was writing forwards for people, was helping people promote their stuff that I was inspired by, and there's a give and take with that where it's like, it's kind of my turn to turn inward and you know what I mean, work on my stuff. Like, even though it was at the same time was always music and I was always making albums, I was always like very fervently creative. It wasn't until this like paradigm of broadcasting, especially within, occultnic adjacent whatever, that I really started to see the irony of a kind of a would-be transformative, like paramount kind of initiatory process be like bought and paid for as a sort of like throwaway aesthetic or a book deal, or you know what I mean. There was a lot of like, oh, okay, I get what this is. Talking points, publicists sort of, rhetoric. And that's I think I was angry about it when I first found it. I was like, it's like anything else, it's just like the music industry, it's like blah blah blah. And then, over time, I think as you internalize that's kind of comforting. It's like, yeah, it is kind of like everything else. So be wise about who you seek out, who you work with, where you're putting your energy. And I think like the Neptunian resonance of that is there's a want to see the empathic kind of resonance of everyone and the abilities of everybody, and there's like there's always possibility in this vision of this we the hollowed international collective, big thing, and then at the end of the day it's like whether or not the people show up, and that's like all you can really do about it. And I think yeah, all you can really do about it is just to show up and kind of like stay true. And I felt like that was increasingly clear through the 2020 to now. And that must be like the tail end of that like Piscean Neptunian, just like, kind of shedding those flippant possibilities and trajectories of like, we can do everything, you know what I mean? Like, this is gonna work, let's try this, into being a bit more measured about what you're putting into and what's important and who you're working with and stuff. So that could be part and parcel to this recent transit too.
Cool. Yeah.
What do you think, Leo?
I think retrospectively, Neptune and Pisces was a wild time. That's what I think. I think
so long, and thanks for all the fish.
Right. I think that it, similar to you, how you got back into magic and you were dealing with all these, hard issues in your life in 2011. I was in a different part of my life, and I was suddenly obsessed with magic out of nowhere. I was suddenly obsessed with all these things out of nowhere. And I had always had spiritual, metaphysical, leanings, but for some reason it dominated my mind. And I think that that's indicative of the transit, and I just saw, I think what I thought was that, oh, this is how oh, wow, I discovered this world. Everybody's doing this. And I think that, no, like everybody's doing this now. And I think that that's kind of what I saw. And I think we're going to see, not like an instant reduction in those kind of things, but I think we're going to see Neptune kind of growing, the ideal in a different sector now, obviously, with, in terms of yourself, but also in terms of the mundane. So I think that it's going to be interesting. I can't pinpoint exactly even how I feel. I will say this though, the synchronicity and enchantment meter in my life and people that I talk to on a daily basis has been cranked up significantly.
Yeah.
So enchantment has returned to the world in a certain way after being, and plus you got to remember too, the last part of Neptune being in Pisces was co-present with Saturn. So Saturn is not doing well, but also still somewhat constricting Neptune. And I always think of it this way too, because like when an eclipse happens, the moon goes in front of the sun. Well, anything further out than Saturn, when they make a conjunction, is being eclipsed by Saturn. So that's something to think about too, is that they both have effects, but I started to think of it in that way, whereas like Saturn is kind of constricting these boundaryless notions, and it's kind of being like, hey, yeah, you run shit in this sign, Neptune, but at the same time, like, I'm here to kind of usher us into the next phase of like, it's not going to be water, it's not going to be playtime in the kiddie pool forever,
Yeah.
Well, Saturn likes structure. That's just it. It's kind of like, Saturn's like the dad. He's the one that likes to put down the rules. He likes structure. He doesn't like it's, it's kind of like he's the one that likes to scold everyone. Saturn is can be, I don't want to say bullyish, but you're right. Saturn like will block, is kind of like the block.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All those rings. Saturn likes to flex the rings.
Lord of the Rings. Yep, indeed.
Yeah, I was
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, Saturn is a perfect planet to jump into because there is some big stuff happening with Saturn. I know Frater Perseus has talked to me about it, especially as in regards to the great Saturnian beatdown that I feel like I've been going through for however long. But
Yep.
Tell us more.
Well, I'll start us off with this. Saturn is still in Pisces, trailing behind Neptune, and it's about to ingress into Aries as well, right behind Neptune. And that's going to happen on the 24th of this month. So that's going to be Saturday 24th. So be prepared. It's going to be a big shift because Saturn is in fall in Aries, so it can't do its thing there. Like it's still going to be felt, but I would say the dial is going to be drastically turned down, and I'm going to say that it's not going to be able to operate the same way it normally operates. So it's going to be, I'm interested because I was a very little kid the last time this happened, so right. I'm interested to see what that feels like. I'm down, dude. Saturn in fall, summer, let's go. That's how I feel.
Well, is what's the conjunction? Is it okay? So maybe that's a Venus thing, which we'll get to because Venus has some big stuff coming up. There was a conjunction that's like the first time in recorded history. Do you know what that is off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's going to be next February when Saturn, perfectly to the degree an arc minute, conjoins Neptune. I believe that hasn't happened in like 6,000 years.
Right.
I think that's, if you run the charts back. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not saying that's 100% true, and maybe somebody will fact check this and be like, no, that's wrong, and that's totally fine. But I remember hearing specifically.
Well, we know it's not true because the Bible says that there's no way that's true. So
maybe that's what started it all, was that transit. It was 6,000 years ago.
That's Yeshua and Jacob. No,
yeah, but
having too much fun with that one. But yeah, that's like that's one of those things. I feel like there's this culmination with the what you were like the outer planets, right? They're all shifting. I think I heard somewhere that every planet shifts this month, which is also kind of a rarity that they all happen to line up in the Gregorian, month.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I don't think Mars is going to shift, and I don't think all these other ones are going to shift, but I also want to state for clarity what I mean by the conjunction, because Saturn did conjoin Neptune 30 years ago. I mean, they have not conjoined in the first degree of the zodiac, which is 0 to 1 degrees Aries in 6,000 years. That's what I mean. Not just that they haven't conjoined, because they conjoin every 30 years.
I would have gotten many an email about it.
No, in that exact degree, the first degree of the zodiac. That's where they haven't conjoined since that time, supposedly. That I looked, I couldn't even get a fucking ephemeris for like 6,000 years ago. None of the programs go back that far, so they must have done some crazy.
Let me grab my book. I can't remember how far back my book goes. I got 2 of them.
Sweet.
I suck at using them, but hold on, give me 1 second. This only goes to 1900, and this one, I don't have mine. Don't go that far back either.
Yeah,
they only go as far back to the 1900s.
Yeah, I don't know if Solar Fire or the other as Astro Gold, the other 2 professional astrology programs, like the charting programs. I don't know if they go that far back. They might. I don't know who figured that out, but I remember listening. Actually, Keats, it was a trialogue with, I forget the one guy's name, but it was Dan Waits and S.J. Anderson were doing a trialogue discussion with this guy. And I think it was Dan Waits that had mentioned that it was 6,000 years. So
Keats, you gotta, Renee and John aside, they put in the chat, you gotta turn your mic up.
Thank you.
Turn that mic up.
I put it in the private chat. I don't think you saw it, but Renee just commented again, so I'm sorry for the interruption.
No, I appreciate it. Please interrupt me. Especially keep in mind the audio version of this, and that is a big deal. Also, this is the best vocal mic I have, and the worst one when it comes to localization. So check. Am I louder to you guys? Am I louder to everybody out there?
Yep.
You sound the same to me.
Sound a little louder to me.
Good now, thanks. Okay.
All right, John side saying
awesome.
Good, yeah. It's all we're good.
So yeah, I mean, that's what I think about the Saturn thing. What do you guys think? What have you seen?
Well, I was thinking about, so funny enough, I had my oldest son in 1999. He was born February of 1999. Funny enough.
I remember where I was.
I forgot on the 18th. I remember where I was. I was delivering a child 3 weeks early, but he was fine. They had my my due date wrong. But those years for me, like looking at the 90s, those were a very chaotic time for me. I was in not full-blown addiction quite yet, close to it, running amok. I was like lost didn't know what to do, just, living what I thought was a carefree life. I was actually living a very boring, unfulfilled life. But after my son was born, I would say about 2-3 years later is when I really got my act together. So that time period, there was a lot that happened, a lot of turmoil, a lot of my own making too. I was like the maker of my own madness, that was for sure. But I do think, Saturn's always, I always find like Saturn just kind of always sucks. Like my returns have been like, some people, it's like, oh, I got married, I did this. Nope, it's when I got sober. It's when my mother died was my second one. So it's like, they're always a little traumatic for me. So I kind of like that it's going to have some limitations. I kind of need that right now. I kind of need something a little bit lighter. And I do need the focus though, because I've been so unfocused. I have not been doing life well. So I think in a way I kind of embrace the change, but I also I like that it's in a fire sign, because anytime things in fire, I like that, because God, half my chart's in fire, but I just feel like that's what I need. I need that spark. I need to have that passion for me to do what I need to do. So I like that it's in a fire sign.
Cool.
New beginnings too, hopefully.
Yeah, it's another 2.5 year cycle, so let's prepare for that. That's Saturn is like compared to the other outer planets, he's like the young whippersnapper flying around the zodiac compared to Neptune and Pluto and Uranus. So that'll be interesting to finally get a fucking break, man. Oh my God. The last 7 years. I was talking to my mom, and she doesn't really know that much about astrology. So I try to, when she's open and willing to listen to me, when she's not in one of her stubborn moods, and I love you, Mom. But, she listens, she definitely does listen, but I was like, telling her about these changes and all these things happening. And, I lost my point a little bit. I forgot what I was saying. Sorry. What was I saying?
Oh, you just went off for 20 minutes about how stubborn your mom is. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God. Did I black out? I did it again.
Dude, are you okay?
You guys have left and it's just me on the stream.
You were just talking mad shit about your mom.
You were
man,
like,
for
and you
20
were in a
minutes.
thought, and then you just got lost in that memory.
I did. I was thinking of my mother's beautiful face and how much I miss her home cooking. But I can't remember what the hell I was saying, so I'm sorry. But
you were telling her about the changes coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. She had mentioned she hasn't felt happy in like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And that's where Saturn has been in its domicile since the end of 2017. So it was in Capricorn, and because of some cruel twist of fate and the gods, Saturn's domiciles are conjoined next to each other. So it's 5 years of Saturn ruling, being as strong as it can be, I guess, except for its exaltation, but that's 5 years. And this was like at the beginning of when it moved into Pisces, and my mom's like, I haven't felt happy in 5 or 6 years. And I was like,
damn,
I didn't want to tell her. It was like,
it's all Saturn's fault.
It's Saturn, Mom. And she'd be like, but it's like, yeah, me neither. I haven't felt myself or been young, joyous, jovial Leo, like in spirit for a while. I feel like every one of my naive my naive beliefs about life has been smashed, which is good ultimately, but it's also like, damn, that's a painful Band-Aid to rip off. It's like, and it's like, especially for my mom too, when she's going through things, and I'm sure people can relate to this. You have family members, or you have, a romantic partner or children or whatever that are going through things. And if you are aware of astrology, you can kind of, even if you don't tell them that's what it is, you can be like, well, it is going to pass and all these kind of things. So that is good to know, like to know that it's going to change. I've been telling my mom, like, just wait till the end of May. Just kind of hold on, hang in there till the end of May, because I feel like you're going to feel better. And I haven't told her it's Saturn, but I feel like she's going to be like, yeah, I just feel so much better. She's going through her second Saturn return, and Saturn is on her. And Saturn is on her fucking sun right now. Her sun is at 28 degrees. It's at 27.56 right now. So she's getting rocked. So I'm just my little Greek mom, I'm trying to like hold her and be like, it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. We promise.
Yeah, I know. And that's been a constant thing in my life about, trying to maybe over-explain or explain away why I find use in astrology, right? And what it can do for me, especially in the pragmatic kind of sense, because people are like, okay, great, like what do I do with that information? And it's like, well, it's not. It can be something. I mean, think about like the resonance of understanding that a certain date in the future might be a little more raucous than others. Like, how does that affect your current stasis? Like, will you make different decisions? And sometimes you won't. I'm stubborn like that. I probably will persist like nothing is going on. But retrocausally, it's always like made, like it's made sense to me, like in a sympathetic rhythm about maybe like of just like the kind of atmospheric tundra, right? It's a forecast. That's why I always love the idea of the astrology forecast, because it is weather. It's like we get the weather forecast every day. Does that keep us from going to work? Well, I guess only if it's inclement, right? But I guess only if an asteroid was coming to Earth, right? Algol was falling to Earth. We'd probably be like, oh shit, astrology's hitting me in the face, but outside of that, it's like, no, we persist. We persist. Everything, it's just a way to fill in the blanks and to neon the noirs of things that might be outside. Like, why do I have this intuitively like off feeling, or why is something more exacerbated than other things? I find that astrology is just a really nice schematic for more intuitive thinking, and to really, like assess, just another dimension to assess your day with, right? Leo
Yeah.
and I have been working on implementing kind of an astrological component to the Divergent Magic ritual, because I think it can be pragmatically used in sort of like a outdoor education tracker
Mhm.
type way of understanding outside energies and finding patterns and seeing what works and what doesn't as you're building your own, creative process or magical ritual process. So like with Leo's mom though, I always run into that. And even just now, that spiel I was just on, it doesn't turn their heads and make them go, "Oh yeah, that sounds great." For them it's like, fuck, that sounds like a lot of work, and not a lot of reward.
You know what I
Sure.
love about astrology though? Like when I learned, so I, did the class to like do my birth chart. I got validation and about things about myself, my personality, the way I, the way my brain works, the way I show up in the world. To see it like in the stars, so to speak, it made me feel finally not like such a weirdo, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Like,
And that's the
Yeah.
other thing.
like
It's that sort of like, not, I don't want to say religiosity, but the like good, helpful aspect of like belief and in that soothing, take the load off sort of way. Like, holy shit, not everything is by my hand all the time, which is,
yeah,
Exactly.
I get like no earth in my chart, which it makes so much sense because I'm allergic to like all animals. I can't grow things. I kill plants. Like, it's like, oh my God, I'm not just like, I used to wonder, like, why did I not get the Italian genes and the Portuguese genes it just all so much just made sense for me. It really helped me to have a lot of self acceptance about myself and embrace the fact that I'm just a little different than everybody else. And I always felt that way, but I felt less like a weirdo.
Yeah.
If you guys notice when I move my head, see this like ring light I have back here? How it's ghosting through me?
That's weird.
It's because this camera I'm using is from 1983 and it's got a tube amp in it, and I'm in threat of burning that bright light onto the camera. So I'm gonna get up and move that light.
Yeah.
You guys keep talking, but you'll see me back there fidgeting for a little bit.
Sure.
And
It's
yes,
funny
this
to
is a
keep in a
time
baseball
travel
cap.
specter vision right now.
Yeah. Keats with his technology. Here we go. Yeah, I guess the other thing I wanted to say in terms of people who are listening, like I didn't understand what astrology, like I was like, what is it even? Like, oh, it's you're born like this, or what is it? Like they're the influence, and I've talked about this in my previous chats with Keats, but screens there. But it comes in through the back. It comes in through the back of your psyche. These are, archetypal influences that you feel on when you wake up on a certain day and everything's the same. You're in your house, everything, everybody is there, blah, blah, but you feel different.
Yeah.
That is like a moon transit, or that is you're feeling stuff, like that's how it manifests in that way. Like there are these subtle feelings and these subtle lenses that get put over your perception and your thinking that, the stars, it's an old saying. I learned this from John Michael Greer. It's the stars incline, they don't compel. And I think that that's a great way to look at it, because like they're influences, and like, yes, these influences will influence other things, which will influence, your day-to-day life and outside events, or what we think seemingly are outside events. But that's one thing I wanted to cover is like what are we even talking about? Like, how am I supposed to feel this if I don't understand astrology and I don't understand the symbols and all these things? Is, you know,
astrology is hard. Like I will say like I've done, like, I'm a certified card reader and I'm a this and a that, but I will say the 2 astrology classes I did were 2 of the hardest. I love it.
Sure.
And I want to learn more about it, but it requires brain power and dedication, which I've come up short with. But I used to always like to read my horoscope. Now, granted, knowing what I know now, I have a different take on that, but I've always been fascinated, and I'm greatly affected by moon cycles. And I didn't know that until I started to understand astrology. And once you understand how the moon cycles can affect you, you can use that to your advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you have the same, because it goes through the signs every month. So you're having the same story emotionally on repeat every month, basically, with obviously the different aspects from all the other planets, but you're having that moon in those same signs every month.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to learn the rhythms of your own internal intuitive leanings and your, you know, stuff like that. And then there's the chart itself, which is all these influences we're talking about, like I said, that coming through the back of your psyche and influence your perception and influence your thinking. But that's just what you're feeling right now. You're swimming in it now, but your chart is, you know, for the people who don't understand what a chart is, your chart is the imprint smash of that moment in time of what the influences were. And then the house system shows you how that relates to the areas of your life. And I think that's, dude, let's give it up for the thousands of years of people who you'll never know their names, who studied this their whole life. How many people were like studying this every day and like, oh, I think when it moves into this position, it means this. And then the other guy's like, yeah, dude, I think you're right. I felt that too. And they wrote it down. And, you know, we've noticed all these things for thousands of years. And it's like, let's give it up for those people and the people who got burned to death for trying to be like, yo, this is real shit. You guys shouldn't, you know, this shouldn't be banned. Like, this is really what's happening. And the church was like, burn the Starseer, bring me one who sees that I will win the war. You know what I mean? Like, it's just stuff like that, you know, or like burn the Starseer witch, you know, like it's insane that we've, you know, lost so many. I mean, we've lost so many good astrologers. Obviously people die. Cecco Discoli is probably one of my favorite examples of all time, but you know, let's just give it up for those people who studied for thousands, you know, over the thousands of years. And I can now look at a chart on my computer. It just magically manifests these, you know, they're approximations because we're all humans. Everything is going to be, you know, that, but it's like, they're pretty accurate for being approximations. So I'm grateful to have that.
Well, I have a friend at work that, she had her astrology chart done and it was all handwritten. Like you said, we can just go onto a website, it generates, you know, you put in the data and it spits out your chart. But when she had hers done, the woman actually had to she had like a template and she had to handwrite all that in and do all, you know, do it all, like do all the hard stuff, right? That we can just generate, you know. So mad respect to like the old school astrologers that didn't have the technology that we have today. That had to like really interpret everything, every bit of it.
Yeah, had to hand cast charts. Like, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
And then draw out all the aspects and then calculate everything. And imagine making an ephemeris, sitting there and realizing how long it takes for a planet to move and how often it retrogrades and being like, all right, let me write that down today for the 17th year in a row. You know, like that's insane.
And I guess really like, there's so many versions of astrology too. That's what you know, I wanted to start to look at like the Kabbalah astrology. I actually have a couple of books, but I never got to. I learned I think it's esoteric. It's a very basic one. The only thing I didn't like about the class was they didn't do Chiron, who's one of my favorites, who I actually researched on my own. Yeah, because I feel like that's important. And there's other stars and stuff that are part of your charts that I don't really know anything about. you know, something at some point I'd like to dig into more, learn more, because I know they play into all this as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think Christopher Warnock has a fixed star astrology book that I'd like to check out. I'm pretty sure Algol will probably be in there too, Keats.
Yeah, I mean, Algol obviously was a huge precipice for me because I think more so I was afraid of it. It was like the first, I think, transit that took me by surprise because of how it was so deeply tethered to like what I was already working on and constructing, especially with like the album that was then called Al Ghul and like those, you know, working about what's funny is that album Al Ghul that I released on tape only form because it's like more evolved version is now called Al Ghul, ALGOL. And it's literally, I found myself, all the songs lyrically are about my time in 2011, which is super interesting. As like so it's a very astrologically not intentional, but almost because of and documentarian like, you know, idea of like that Neptunian transit and the Algol meteor or asteroid or whatever the space rock, you know.
Yeah. You mean like Algol's the star, right? That's what you mean?
Yeah, star, you know, like that's what I'm saying, all the ephemeral, you know, other kind of connective space objects.
Right. Well, the interesting thing is that Uranus is at 26 degrees and 22 arc minutes in Taurus right now, and Algol is at 2610 Taurus and has an orb of about 2 degrees. So Uranus is right on top of Algol right now.
Right, and that was a huge like that was a scary one, I think, socially for all of us. I think all of us were like super weirded out by it for a lot of reasons. I had personal ones just because of like more symbolic resonance, but you know, you being Frater Perseus, me working on something called Al Ghul, which is the demon's head, and Al Ghul, you know, is represented by Medusa or Medusa's head, who was, you know, decapitated by Frater Perseus, and we were just working on like astrological things at that time. And then it was that transit where, you know, Trump's head almost got blown off, and like it was like this insane, like weird fabric of unknowingness, you know, jolted that but I felt it like, you know, the macro and the micro, I think, kind of reflected in that sense. It was a very looming weirdness, and because my confusion about my birth time, it really could have tossed up, you know, like it was just one chart was showing like, oh, brace for impact, another one was like, it's gonna be fine, you know, and it was just a weird weave at a weird time. What was that, last summer? Yeah,
it was last summer. July 17th was the day I believe Trump got shot, and it happened 3 days before, I think on the 14th.
Yeah.
So, or was it? No, it was on the 14th. I think on the 17th was the day I remember thinking about it and checking the thing. But speaking of Uranus, I mean, it's riding the edge right now, and it's going to start rolling into Gemini, and that's going to be, I think that's going to be interesting. One thing I noticed about that, and we'll get to a better transit after this. We'll get to the Jupiter transit, which today is Jupiter's day. Hail Jove. But the Uranus into the Gemini transit is going to immediately, two things are going to happen. One, Venus is going to conjoin it and kind of usher it. Venus in her domicile of Taurus is going to conjoin Uranus and usher Uranus into Gemini, which is going to be cool. So there's like a positive thing there. There's a positive energy ushering it into the next sign, which I think is awesome. The other thing that's awesome about that is that they'll both be simultaneously trining Pluto in Aquarius, which will be another supportive aspect, which will be good. So I think that's good. I think that can mean so many things. You know, it's going to be explosive, but that doesn't necessarily mean violent or bad. That just means, you know, new in your face. You know, so that's going to be really interesting as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to see yeah, we could be like, oh, it's going to mean AI finally takes over all the quantum computers and they start calculating in other dimensions, and then the aliens finally come through and it's
Floppy
over.
digital.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think that there's going to be a part of that, but I think and this is the rebel inside of me that I always talk about. I think that there's going to be opening new doors for open source things, probably,
right,
and new ways and new communities and new things for us to not have to be ushered into the digital ghettos of Facebook and Instagram and all these things where it's just like you can only go here and focus on this, where it's like, I think we're going to be able to finally have some more power. And, I'm not a crypto guy, but I'm sure that could potentially play a part. I think there's also things that could play huge parts in it, that, our technology is what it is. And it's getting so extrapolated to where, and it's like, I don't even know if I believe in some of the shit they're talking about. I don't even know if it's even real. You know what I mean?
Quantum computers, like, what's the fathomability process of something like that?
How the fuck did monkeys who were hitting rocks together create computers that can calculate more things than the universe can calculate?
Multi-dimensional equations. What the fuck are you talking?
I know I'm stupid, but I don't know if I believe that. But that's just me.
That's like why language is such a powerful tool too. In that, it's just because how impactful and how resonant those words are. It could, for a scientist, it could be very very trite, kind of specific, still impactful, still amazing. But for us, that are a bit more on the artistic leaning side, the words that you just strung together are making me fucking envelope into nightmare space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's, I've written about that on Haunt Manual. I'm really excited. I'm past the grumpy part. Whatever's happening is happening. I feel like I know my place within it as far as technology and all that's concerned, and I'm far more excited to find the other people and communities that are going to buoy this idea of somatic magic and going back to media talismans, handmade, handcrafted, basic sigils of highly intentional art and modes of transmission, even in the digital space. I talked about how when I was younger, still in this veil of a tool of the internet, we were able to build these incredibly custom, weird lo-fi dominions, and have it be an actual address, in the cartography of the internet that we created, rather than rent out shoebox space owned by techno bro billionaires, and a homogenized shit factory that is social media. And I do see a large pushback to that too. And I think that initial reaction of this is fucking bullshit, it was necessary, and I'm happy that, and I will always have that partly as a kind of invigoration formula. But I'm far more excited. I'm on the other end where it's just it's fine, man, doesn't fuck with me. I don't give a shit about that. You do you. I'm really excited about what's happening over here, kind of a thing,
Exactly.
So Venus has been retrograde, and that's about to end.
That was Venus was a huge one I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, Venus retrograde, definitely. I felt that hard, but what's coming up with Venus, I can't wait, because it's all about your passions, what you love, and all that stuff. So I'm riding that wave of that's going to get me back to me, back to my passions, to what I care about, to what I love, to do things that make me happy, to focus on myself, not even about relationships or anything like that, just more self love, care, all that. I'm hoping my intent is to hopefully ride that train with that energy, because the retrograde definitely I felt hard.
Yeah, it just entered Aries yesterday, so that's
No
gonna
accident that I'm here today.
be right on.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I
that's
just
gonna
got
be cool.
noticed that I think my dead tech necromancy is whining, and my 1983 tube camera is emitting some noise to the viewers. So bear with me. Groucho Trout says my Taurus moon is feeling this. I don't think he's talking about the high-pitched noise emitted from my camera. I think he's talking about the stream. Thank you for coming here, brother and fellow agent of the LPA. Miss John aside and Mr. John aside, good to see you as always. I think I saw
We had a
there's a
pre-prepared
Mr.
by
CW in there for a
Yep.
little bit back when. He probably went to stream immediately, because that's what happens anytime I do anything. He ends up doing something too. So
He's
and
been
then
going
there
live
was
lately.
Oswald Spangler, who I haven't seen in forever. So I hope you're good, brother. Yes, the long dead and famed philosopher, Decline of the West, was in our chat tonight. So thank you.
I was about to say, I'm like, Spangler's here? I was like, that's wild.
I know.
All
so,
too
see,
appropriate.
He's not live. I just checked just for the hell of it, just to see if he was. He doesn't look like he's live. But he's been going live lately, I noticed. On my, I'm on the East Coast, so I'm the problem child. That's why Keats had to do it. I don't know what time zone you're in, Leo, but like I'm on the East Coast. So he said 8 o'clock my time. I'm like, okay, because if it's 8 o'clock your time, I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah, I'm chilling on Saturn right now. I don't got no time zone.
Nice. Yeah, it looks like it was my camera. This is all good information. I'm glad. Thank you, Groucho, for helping. As you can tell, there was a lot of work done here in the dimming room. Even before the stream, I decided to switch shit up and didn't want to sit back in the performance space and have to swaddle through this chat. So had some last minute rambling, but yeah, my 1983 tube amp camera I don't think is going to be great for streaming for some reason. It's emitting some noise for something, so it should be fine now. Relief. Noise went away when you switched to the color cam. Cool.
Nice.
Well, I'm gonna try another cam in the background, and it won't be the old one. It'll be the nicer one. So we'll do that from there. But anyway, yes, Venus. Speaking of beauty and how we're presenting ourselves, and I've heard a lot about this initial week in May, having a lot to do with there was another conjunction. Let me look at my notes, but there is Venus. I know it's Venus. Let's see.
It's conjoining Neptune tomorrow.
Yeah, Venus and Neptune tomorrow, and it's conjunction, which is and there's a moon conjunction too on top of that. So 3 highly potent feminine, planets, all conjunctivitis, I guess.
The moon's in Cancer right now.
No, I mean the moon being a
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that's what I heard. Yeah, I could be allowing my folkloric tirades to reign in. But anyways, yeah, Venus in Aries as well. And so Venus in a very passionate, fire-driven, childlike wonder. But what I heard, especially because it's in Taurus season, is that the toral reigns of earthly pentacle wealth coin type energies are abound. So hopefully that means people's wallets are gonna feel a little better.
Yes, it's supposed to be some abundance financially.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm already
I won't hold my breath.
I'm already a billionaire, so I don't worry about any of that shit.
Along the way.
Yeah.
I wrote something down about Venus. I'm trying to find where I wrote it, and of course I can't find it.
the moon's in Cancer, so the moon's not going to conjoin those two planets if that's what Keats was talking about. But
Yeah,
think,
the full moon we should talk about.
Well,
afterwards.
Cancer
That's a
being
big
super
one.
feminine, I think that's what I picked up on, was like there was a lot of positive, like divine feminine kind of planetary
Okay.
energies happening
All right.
on
Yeah,
the
I see that.
in the same time frame.
Okay, right on. Yeah, I mean that pretty much. We went through Saturn, we went through Neptune, we're doing Venus now. Let's see what else. What else can we run through? You wanted to talk about the full moon, right, Joey?
Yeah, so I found what I had about Venus. It's reigniting the momentum about money, creativity, and pleasure. That's what I had written down. So I love the moons, and when I was like, I was listening to there's one, I don't follow a ton of astrologers, but there's one that I kind of like because I like her breakdown, and she gives me what I need quick when I don't have a lot of time. So, and our full moon is going to be in Scorpio this month coming up. And my moon is, my moon sign is in Scorpio, which some people are afraid of Scorpios. I can relate to them, the dark and the twisted and the taboo and all that stuff. But so it's May 12th, and it's supposed to be it's going to be one of our most intense and destructive energetic events of the year, from what I was reading. So I think like during all these like kind of nice energies, this is when it's kind of like in the middle of the month, shit's gonna get a little real, and there's gonna be pressures on commitments, relationships, issues, and it's kind of like it's more like a turning point more than anything else. It's like it's kind of a time to be like, okay, let's like pause, let's redirect, let's pivot, like this isn't working, acknowledging like, okay, this is like, know how too much of a good thing is not always good. I feel like that's gonna like put the brakes on that, like, okay, let's like pause and then be like kind of like pull it back and be more realistic. I think it's gonna be powerful in a good way, but I think some people though is gonna really fuck with their lives if they're not willing to pause, self-assess, and redirect if they need to. That's just my take on it.
Interesting. Do either of you guys ever feel full moons powerfully? Because like sometimes I don't.
Oh,
really?
Everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. If it's a real powerful one, like a strong one, I can't sleep.
I'm fucked either way. Yeah, I jokingly with Mary, we joke about like handcuffing me to a bedpost like a werewolf.
I was just gonna say that you can turn into a werewolf.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because I mean it's going to be in its fall there, so I full moons like the full moon and it's yeah. I mean like it's still a full moon, so I'm curious like a full moon in its fall, like the moon cycle still really interests me and enchants me because I don't really fully understand all that stuff. So yeah, I think you're right, Jilly. I think there's going to be some tension there between. I mean, that's obviously what it's going to be. It's going to be a weird luminary tension. So
secrets, because of Scorpio. But
yes, the dark and the twisted and the taboo, which is all my favorite things.
Yeah.
But,
hell yeah. That was at the 8th.
Yeah.
8th house or whatever.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say, the moon system for me makes sense just because of like elementally. I mean the arithmetic I put on it. Of course, I don't know if this is why, but it's that same kind of aspect of the tides changing and the wealth of water in a human body, but also maybe in your wherever your moon is. Mine happens to be ruled by the sun, which is already kind of it's like a perfect diametrically opposed situation with a Leo moon. But also, yeah, like I don't know, the kind of Neptunian watery tides in a lot of my houses and whatnot, I imagine the currents kind of shift and change a little more because of the moon's shit, the lunar cycles, excuse my language.
I really feel it too when it's about to change into when it's about to move into another house.
Mm-hmm.
Like my progressed moon had been in my 7th house, because it's like 2.5 months or something it takes for it to move all the way through. I can't remember exactly. So it totally was aligning with what I was like going through for the most part. But yeah, I get affected. Like this last new moon was a really nice. It was the pink new moon, so already you know it's going to be like a nice, easygoing energy. But I'm not surprised that the full moon then is very powerful, because we had such a like low key new moon, so to speak.
Well, I wanted to
I
bring
always
that up
feel like they're like opposites.
too, because the most recent new moon, the one this last week,
Mm-hmm.
I felt was it kind of like doubled up on that like Neptunian shift energy,
Yeah.
or like
Yep.
it kind
Yeah.
of brightly focused it. You
Right.
know, it felt
Yeah.
good.
Right.
Yeah.
I bet it
Yes.
did. That pink energy was definitely it was a very light, easygoing.
It's
'Cause
that
not
Nick
all
Drake
the moon
pink moon
energies.
energy. You know.
Yeah, because not all the moon energy. Some moon energies really could be very when it's strong, it can be very harsh, I
Yeah.
should say. But
So
I
you're
love
saying
using.
the upcoming full moon in Scorpio, what is that, end of May?
No, it's May
Well,
12th. I
Okay,
said.
mid-May. Because I've
Yeah,
also heard that makes sense, because I've also heard that maybe the last 2 weeks are also very hectic in a good way. Like I've heard honestly nothing but like general positive. Obviously, not everything is going to be just, well, folks, it's going to be great. Have a good day. You
well,
know what I
I think
mean?
it's coming out of the eclipse season and other energies.
Yeah.
I think it's more like coming out on the other side of some of the heavier stuff that people have been carrying around
Yeah.
or feeling. But I love the moon cycles too for rituals, like for releasing
Exactly. Yeah.
stuff. You know, cutting a cord or releasing a situation. And it's only certain ones. And I got to say, I've done my biggest releases during November, which is, that's that's the,
Yeah.
Scorpio, that's the month of Scorpio. But I found work that I've done when I've done a ritual during that month, that's when I've gotten the biggest release or completion is during that month.
Yeah. Interesting. What's funny too, another kind of synchronicity, I guess you could call it, or just a coinky dink, was that in my like recommended feeds on Hauntomancer, the new YouTube channel I made for specific to like catalog all the, Hauntomantic art rituals and stuff. But I was recommended today the weird Orphic improvised Orphic hymn song I wrote and like recorded and put on the PRAGMAGICK channel in like 2020. And through the cringing of that, but through the initial cringe of it, I was like, there was a very kind of nice reminder, a kind of beatific reminder of a more innocent kind of compassionate communion with with the moon itself and Selene and all that. So thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think I've seen that actually, the video. So interesting. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what happens. Full moons are fun. I like to go on walks during the full moon if I can see it. And then because I go out really late at night, so everyone in my town is asleep, so I prowl the streets at night. And I dodge.
Oh, that was you. Wanted in 3 states.
I dodge the cops for sure. I'm always ducking behind. No, I'm just kidding. But I live right down the street from the police station, so they see me every night. But Yeah, it's gonna be. You know, if you can see it that night, I recommend people go out and just go for a walk. I throw in headphones and I'll listen to music, or I'll listen to something that puts me into a state of just kind of, you know, after you walk for, you know, I'll go for 3 mile walks almost every night. So like after you start walking for like 20 minutes, I don't know if anybody else gets this, but I get into like a meditative state.
It's
Yeah.
my
And
favorite. It's one of my longest lasting, most natural and favorite like mechanical tools I use every day to excess is ambulation therapy, or just mindless and wanderless or wandering kind of destinationless, walking.
You
Yeah.
know, I don't want. My job makes it so that I sit on Zoom calls all day long. I have never been so sedentary in my life.
Yeah, that's brutal.
It's
Yeah.
and it's like I'm seeing it come out in ways that I've never expected. Like, I didn't realize how much of an impact it's taken on me physically till recently. I'm starting to really like things I could do before where, and granted, I did turn 50 this year, but I'm not like, so old. But I'm like, wow, I did one small thing and I need to go sit down. And I used to never be that way.
Yeah.
But where I live on the coast. So I live in, in a town that's on the water. And I gotta say, going to the water to sit and look at the moon is magical. Cause the ocean, the salt, like salt water, that's cleansing anyways. So it's like to sit there and be in the moonlight and hear the ocean, there's no.
Oh, she just got Jilly botted. Hopefully you're still there.
We lost her.
I'm back.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And again, I live on an island,
Right.
and even though I got better internet, it's still not perfect.
I was gonna say, didn't you get Starlink? Not even.
I did. I totally.
Not even Supreme
Elon
Gamer
Musk's.
Bro Elon could help your internet.
I can't. I don't like Elon, but I gotta say,
who the fuck does? Honestly, I want to honestly know who is a fan of that guy.
I'm not.
Trump.
They must be the most willfully ignorant people in the entire universe, and I'm not even considering like the, political change. That's just on top of all the bullshit that I had always disliked him about, But anyways, I digress.
I will say though, Starlink has changed my life. Like where I live on an island, I normally, if I was gonna, like, I had to turn my camera off because you guys were freezing, but normally I remember kids, I get kicked off every 5 seconds and have to rejoin. So freezing a couple times, and my kids are like streaming, they're playing video games. They couldn't do that before. Where I live, it's the price you pay when you live on an island. We had crap, when Starlink came around, I happened to just catch a deal. I got a half price.
No, I didn't mean to call you out on that. I understand.
No, it's okay.
He didn't invent it. He didn't invent
shade.
anything. You know what I mean?
Comcast
he's just a marketing guy.
Too. But I will say I do have some shame about it because I don't normally love him. But I have an interesting astrology fact about Trump that I learned. Just because we're talking about Elon. When I did my astrology classes, we were put into these study groups that, other people doing the classes. And a girl that was in my class, she actually was well schooled in astrology because, believe it or not, people use astrology when they're building teams, like when they're hiring people.
Oh, I know about this, and that's it's offensive.
So I couldn't believe it when she was telling us this, but she was part of it was just like a group of people that did political astrology.
Yeah.
And it was around the and this was when Trump was running, I believe the first time. And they used to use astrology to predict the winners.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just as good as any other prediction, obviously. From what we know, whether it's exit polls or astrology, no one knows. Yeah.
That's wild. I didn't know that.
That's interesting.
And that's
I've
why
heard about this, like, you know, in the hepcat kind of office culture brouhaha bullshit of like building teams, but like at the most base, like almost offensive level of astrology and understanding of astrology, like sun sign only, you know, terrible archetypes of each sign. The type of people are like, you know, oh, I hate Capricorns or whatever. You know what I mean?
yeah, I can't stand that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Trump is like pretty much he has a star that is in his chart that makes him next to invincible practically. That is why he is as cocky as he is and why he keeps like he rises from the dead. I mean, how many times bankruptcy,
Mm.
scandals, and he always comes out unscathed. It's because of this placement that he has in his chart. And they had predicted that he was going to win
Well,
and nobody wanted to believe it that first time, but yeah, he's that guy, and it's in the stars.
all I will just say about this, and we'll move on, is that
Yeah, that's
one
all I
look
got
at
about him.
Trump, and we all know that the body keeps the score, and that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah. That trust me, that's my only interesting fact that I
Like, if
know
you think
about
he's
him
getting
that
away with shit, we can't get away from 20 cheeseburgers a day. Tell you what.
Mhm.
But
That's the
anyways,
only thing I know about him that I ever talk about because I think it's interesting, but other than that,
yeah.
I could care
No, it's
less.
super interesting, and during that whole algal situation was really, yeah, it was a crazy time last summer, and here we are coming to another summer, and it seems to be, from all the bits and bops in this conversation here, that the general attitude, especially of May going into, I think, June especially, is one of benevolence, like largely benevolent kind of transits, um largely relieving kind of transits. um we'll
Yeah.
see. Again, I'm not gonna put that um in a, you know, in the scope of a societal landscape, but for me, I'm looking forward to that very
Mhm.
much so.
Yeah.
Or at least that sort of kind of resonance, right? I feel good already. Granted, shitty things happen every day, but to know that I don't have to be reminded of the awesome power of, you know, cosmic space beyond me by being you know, smited by cosmic transits for the next
Mhm.
couple of months is going to be
Yeah.
nice. um I'd like to
Agreed.
take back my power a little more, and not blame the stars a little bit. Not that I did before, but it's always nice to be like, okay, it was my fault, or, you know, maybe it wasn't all the way. So it'll
Or
be nice to
maybe it
regain
was
that.
my fault, but not my fault because it's not my fault the time I was born, right?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, I don't know. Like, I was premature. I'm sure I fought the fuck to get out there. Um
Well, they still I still can't believe it's like one parent's like, "It was nighttime." No, it was daytime. I'm
sure.
sorry, as a mother, I remember when I can
Yeah.
remember if I'm night or day when I gave birth, just saying.
And yeah, and I mean, you both know my story with birth time, and yeah, nightmare fuel about, but also kind of buoys moving forward, you know, and being passionate about this, like this schema to of like building one's lore and moving that through praxis and creativity. It's like, you can't have other people fill in those blanks, and you got to make decisions about, you know, where you're taking information from, even from memory, and how trustworthy those memories are, and should you dance with
Mhm.
those memories, or, you know, keep them away, or, like, you know, if you don't have your birth time, then do the work to figure it out intuitively. But there's this whole kind of like open world about, no one is writing the book about me, that I've got to write the book about me, you know. And I think that's like a really exciting prospect, um with all of that. And it seems like, from the piecemeal stuff that I've heard, um you know, the transits, or this astrological weather, are going to be a bit more inviting of that prospect moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I would say Saturn being in Aries is going to be awesome. That's going to turn the Saturn energy way down. The one thing I'll say for people is to keep in mind that's on the cardinal axis. So anything you have on the cardinal axis, that's Aries, Libra, Capricorn, and Cancer, is going to be squaring or opposing that stuff. So keep that in mind. That's the only thing that I could see. But it's going to be weak. So it's going to be in its weakest state opposing or squaring those things that you have in that axis. But that's still good. That's still better than it being in fucking Aquarius or Libra. So I'll take that. And then the other thing I think what you're alluding to, Keats, is this Jupiter entering Cancer. And I think that is going to be, I looked at it today, and when the last time Jupiter was in Cancer, it was facing let's see, it was facing, I gotta look it up here on this thing, but it was getting squares and oppositions. Pluto was in Capricorn, and then I think Uranus was in Aries. So it wasn't able to fully express because it was facing the square in this opposition. But that's not the case this time. So
I love Jupiter.
Jupiter's my favorite, and that's something to keep in mind, that like even then good things were happening, and now it seems like there's even a little bit more room for Jupiter to be even more jovial in this sign. So I think I'm ready for the summer. I think this is going to be the summer we've been waiting for like 5 or 6 years, honestly.
I could use that. Jupiter makes everything bigger.
It's Zeus.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like Jupiter.
Jilly, any final thoughts? Any Jerry Springer? Not Springle. Although that should be a character.
No,
Jerry
just,
Springle.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me on tonight. It's, something I definitely need. Nice to talk about things I like instead of work. And it was great to meet you, Leo. I would love to learn more about your astrology journey, because you definitely know a lot more than I do.
I will say, if I can just cut in real quick, the reason why I thought it was paramount to have both of you is because you both have disparate kind of constructions of that arithmetic, but both equally potent and really exciting. The thing that really inspired me about Jill, when she offered to do a reading when we first met, is that she took that what would otherwise be an entire birth chart reading, and she focused on Chiron, which I thought was illuminating and like really inspiring, and very novel. Like, I had not seen that before, and I had known at that time that Chiron was a big thing for me, and was something I always kind of, if someone was giving me a reading, I'd always ask about. So that was super fascinating. So very intuitive, to do that. And Leo, of course, talk about planetary grimoire, astrology, all of that. So you guys coming together and trading those astro barbs, it's going to be super beneficial, especially if you guys want to do this again. But I think we should do somewhat of a check-in maybe next month and see how things played out.
I'm 100% down.
Yeah, me too, because it's gonna make me just be more in tune with it, which I need in my life. And just as a little like history with me and Keats. Keats, when I first met him, he wasn't a big astrology fan. He had a love-hate relationship with it. And I found that
to be fair,
Oh yeah, but you've embraced it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I just remember when I was trying to I just had done my classes or whatever, and a birth chart can be very overwhelming. And I just followed my intuition to see what does that person need to know. And it was like stuck out so big. And I was just so happy that Keats really liked what came through. It was great confirmation for me, and I'm glad it was beneficial for him. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, and both of you came to a lot of, for anecdotal reasons, like came to a lot of the same like understandings and knowledge of multiple birth charts for me, and struggling like cross so you guys were really big in my own kind of, as I was saying earlier about, doing the work and filling in those blanks when no one can for you, which you guys held a lot of that weight. So I appreciate it. And I still, again, what was gifted for me was more of an arithmetic and like a dimensional geometric understanding of dimensions of me, maybe, and how it relates to things ethereally, but also, you know, it became less absolute, and it just made more questions arise, and it just imbued that, mundane weather system with like exciting opportunities to understand, resonance in different ways. So yeah, I think I'm not, my relationship with astrology is never against astrology as much of, I think, against the kind of common zeitgeist conscription of it, or you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
yeah, it's never against the system. It's usually the practitioner in that regard. And so I've met two that have helped inspire the wealth back into astrology. So I appreciate you guys.
Of course. Likewise.
Yes. This was great, Keats. Thank you. We appreciate that you added us on. This was really cool.
Yeah, thanks for hopefully, of course, now Groucho has told me that there was sound being emitted, so I may have just added another annoyance in editing in my long going attempt to just, have a performance captured and put it out to the world instead of needing to do post-production work. Alas, I don't think I'm quite there yet. So thank you for sitting through it with me. And I hope to have this out as a podcast very soon, with or without the annoyances. You know what I mean? Rip the Band-Aid off and get back into the broadcasting in this communal aspect, especially now that other projects have illuminated what PRAGMAGICK still is and should be, and isn't trying to do more than what it was or find room for the other things. So I feel like those are kind of, finding their trajectories again. So I'm excited, and I'll keep you posted about the podcast and keep me updated. Shoot me messages about weirdo transits and things that are happening in the cosmic dust up.
Will do.
Leo,
Awesome.
do you have any final words? I didn't want to take up all the time. It's not all about me.
No, I just want to say, we're getting close to this point where all of these outer planets are, right now, so we have Pluto has already moved, Neptune has already moved, Saturn's about to move, then Jupiter's going to move, and then in July, so Jupiter moves next month in June. In July, Uranus is going to move into Gemini. So that's going to be the middle of July is going to feel completely different in a lot of ways than things even feel now. We're feeling a few of those shifts right now, but there's going to be 3 more that lock in by July. Yeah. So that's one thing I want people to, and like a lot of these are positive though, because Pluto is going to be basically sextiling the Neptune and Saturn, and then that's going to be sextile is a positive aspect. So it's going to be sextiling, those two are going to be on the other side sextiling Uranus, and then that one is going to be, so those 3 are going to have this little basket formation, which is cool. And then, just Jupiter and its exaltation is going to be great. And I think we're going to see, and the other thing I want to mention too is, and we'll talk about this as we go through the summer, but one thing is, another good news for everybody is there are 2 benefic conjunctions of Venus, of forward-moving Venus with forward-moving Jupiter in Cancer. So Jupiter will be exalted, and then Venus will hit it, boom, right on top of that twice. So it's going to be, we'll elucidate more of that in the summer, but I have a feeling this Jupiter year is going to be amazing. So find out where it is in your chart and start planning for some good things in that area is what I would say.
Yeah, another aspect we didn't go over, but it's going to be kind of continual, I'm sure, by the time we do this again, are the nodes and their respective places. But yeah, still so much to talk about, but I think that's a lot. That's a perfect introduction to a kind of cartography of the planets moving forward in the next couple of months. And, forecast is sunny skies, baby. So, I mean, hopefully, I don't know. Who knows, right? Who knows what weirdo fucking like star or asteroid you have, or Lilith, or fucking, that's the
Yeah.
thing. That's the thing. So, good luck.
Yeah.
Hopefully, all of those equations are in your favor this next couple of months. I will do a video to close us out, but I wanted to say thank you to Groucho for hanging with us, Johnny and Renee, Miss John aside, for hanging, as well as anybody else who popped in, CW, Oswald Spangler. Thank you very much. Hopefully those of you watching, the tech gaffes aren't too distracting, and look out for the podcast soon. I'm going to play us out with some raw footage of the hex cassettes created for the Patreon tier,
Nice.
the hex cassette tier for the Hauntomancer Haunt Manual audio chapter cassette tapes, the Moon Rebel split with Frater Perseus and my psych doom metal project DIMtZUM.
Yeah.
So join us on Patreon. You can subscribe for free to check it out. And hopefully you'll come to the other side and support our somatic magic micro press, WeTheHallowed.org push for zines. We just finished the Haulers 2 yesterday, and it looks fucking awesome, doesn't it, Frater?
Oh, it looks amazing. Everyone's getting better.
Yeah, so Eric Millar designed the next print zine newsletter called The Haulers. We already had one. This is the second one, and it just keeps getting better. It looks great. More writing, more art, lots of just so many good things happening in the kind of creative constructs. So please stay tuned to that. Keep abreast of the situation, and for the love of all that is holy, haunt the fuck off.